In retrospect, maybe handing off the reins of The Conjuring, one of horror's biggest IPs at the moment, over to the guy who directed The Curse of La Llorona, maybe wasn't that great an idea.
You okay there? Jesus. I think I hurt someone.
The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, is directed by Michael Chavez, or Michael Chaves. I've heard it pronounced both ways, and I don't know which is accurate because I don't know anything about the guy outside of his directing. It once again stars Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga as fictionalized action hero versions of Ed and Lorraine Warren, two famous ghost hunters who were, in real life, probably con artists. And it tells the story of Arnie Johnson and their connection to that case, a case in 1981 where, after a botched exorcism, a young man murdered his landlord, and this became very publicized because it was the first instance in history of a defendant pleading not guilty by means of demonic possession. Couple quick notes, guys, before we get started. First of all, my debut feature film Lilith is finally getting a release date on July 9th, details to follow. Second, if you like this channel and you like my thoughts on movies, click down there, like, comment, subscribe. There's a bell notification you can click and get updates on videos if you like my content and you want to see more of it. Maybe do that. If you like me, I don't know. This is the third film in the main Conjuring franchise and the 8th film in this total cinematic universe. And before I get started, I do want to preface this because any of you who have watched this channel knows I do enjoy these films, especially the first two Conjuring movies. I love them both. I think they're fantastic. The first one revitalized the haunted house genre in a really cool way, and the second one took everything that was cool about the first one and dialed it up to 11 and made arguably a better sequel. I would consider it to be one of the best mainstream horror movies to have come out of the past decade. The spin-offs are a bit of a mixed bag. I mean, I could have done without most of them, but Annabelle Comes Home and Annabelle Creation are both decently fun times. Same can't be said for The Curse of La Llorona, which had me itchy about Devil Made Me Do It because Michael Chavez, or Michael Chaves, was directing this. James Wan was stepping down and handing it over to the guy who made one of the worst movies in this franchise, so that was, something. And I was pretty hesitant going in for obvious reasons, but the trailers were really good and got me pretty excited. It looked drastically different than everything that came before, but in a good way, and it seemed to be going down the route of a more Exorcism of Emily Rose type story, where it's more based in the court drama and less in the supernatural stuff, and the supernatural stuff is just a supplement to the court drama, and I thought that looked awesome. And it's another Conjuring movie. It's just another Conjuring movie. Maybe my expectations were wrong. Maybe the trailers mismarketed it to me, I don't really know, but I was going in expecting a lot more courtroom drama, and I was hoping for a lot more courtroom drama, and we didn't get any of that. The actual court case is pretty much a blip on the radar of this film and really only exists as the catalyst for Ed and Lorraine to go investigate spooky shit. And it feels weird for me to be sitting here complaining about a Conjuring movie for not including enough legal proceedings, but here I am, disappointed. As a Conjuring film, it does manage to be fun and engaging, and Chaves does a much better job with this movie than he did with La Llorona. Wilson and Farmiga once again proved themselves to be the heart and soul of this franchise, with their rendition of Ed and Lorraine's relationship being incredibly sweet and loving and pure, and a far cry from the reality of, like, underage mistresses and pedophilia and probable con artistry. I digress. Wilson and Farmiga bring an energy and chemistry to these characters that basically makes them the glue that's holding this franchise together at this point. Even when there's nothing else keeping you invested, your attachment to these two characters and their attachment to each other provides enough of a reason to watch. And at this point, the fictionalized versions of these characters are basically just different people to the real Ed and Lorraine Warren, and I'm actually okay with that. It allows me to distance myself enough from the reality of what they were to enjoy these films anyway. The scare sequences here are fun, with a few genuinely, like, unnerving and memorable sequences, particularly the opening, a scene in the morgue, and the climax of this film, which takes place in an underground tunnel network. There are some really clever misdirections throughout here, and they do work as far as the jump scares go, they do work as far as some genuinely creepy imagery. It is a big step up from La Llorona, but you have seen all of this before. And that's the biggest problem with this movie, is that it's very par for the course. It's a fairly predictable film, and Wan's absence as a director is very clearly felt. in the structure, in the editing, in the shot composition, in the scares. On top of that, it just feels like a missed opportunity to really elevate this franchise into something different than the typical haunted house fare we're used to at this point. You can see every single beat coming from a mile away, and while that's not inherently a bad thing, this is the third film in the franchise, and it's not doing nearly enough to make itself stand out, and even when it's at its best, it doesn't feel like anything we haven't seen before. While far from the worst of the franchise at large, it's the weakest of the main films, being surpassed by the first two Conjuring films as well as Annabelle Creation, and in the grand scheme of the cinematic universe that this franchise has become, it's only better than the rest by merit of the rest being really bad. I'm going to say that The Devil Made Me Do It is good for fans of the Conjuring franchise. You pretty much know what you're getting into at this point with these films. If you enjoy the series, you might have a good time with this. If you don't, then you probably won't. For me personally, I liked it fine. It wasn't anything groundbreaking. I was definitely a bit let down, maybe because of my own expectations. I don't know. I'll keep watching these, but I'm at the point where if they don't do something really different with the next film to differentiate it, I'm going to enjoy them less and less every time.
All right?